Okay, let's see if we are live. Looks like we are. I'm gonna send this to my wife so she can watch my stream. Okay. Let's go. So I'm watching videos. I'm trying to make a wow, that's so cool. I'm trying to make a match 3 game in Godot, but I'm gonna add a twist to it so that it's slightly more complex, kind of to try to bridge the gap between casual gamers and more hardcore gamers. So there's a big divide.
Use Candy Crush is kind of the main idea behind this. So anyway, like I said, I'm just kind of drawing out what I want this to look.
I'm following this tutorial right here. It's like a tutorial series. So yeah. Wonder if my wife is watching. Let's see. I'm gonna watch my add twist to it so that it's slightly more complex, kind of to try to bridge the gap between casual gamers and more hardcore gamers. So there's a big divide.
Use Candy Crush is kind of the main idea behind this. So anyway, like I said, I'm just kind of drawing out what I want this to look.
I'm following this.
Look like. So I want my bottom of my screen to have maybe a pause button and then a couple power up buttons here, maybe 2 or 3. And then the top of my screen, I'm gonna just kind of trace this out. I want this to have something that has like a moves or a time counter. A little place here for me to tell if things need to be collected, what needs to be collected, and then maybe a score bar that can be filled in, and then at certain points we can instantiate a star so that we can say if we earned between 1 and 3 stars on a level. So this is kind of a layout of what I want my game to look like. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I need to know in pixel coordinates where I want things to go on my screen. So first of all, if I'm using a reference of 9 by 16, let's say that each of these squares here represents 64 pixels. So that means the actual size of my display needs to be 64 times 9 for the width and 64 times 16 for the height. Now 64 times 9, that is 576, and 64 times 16, I think is that 1024?
Moguls are paying millions in the metaverse to creators.
Let me check.
Okay, I'm back. Let's make a little desk. There we go. Let's see. This chat stays in OBS.
Okay, so then our screen is going to be 576 width by 1024 tall. We're not going to be using this when we test it. We're going to be using a slightly smaller dimension, but this is good for us to have as a reference. Most modern cell phones have a resolution that's higher than this. Some have a resolution that's lower, but this would be a nice kind of median resolution to use. Okay, and the other thing we need to find out is where we want our first piece to go. So let's say that we have a piece that goes right here, and its x and y coordinates are in its middle. We need to know what that x coordinate is and what that y coordinate is so that we know an x start for the grid and a y start. So x start and y start. Now, if I'm making each of these squares 64, that means that my x start is going to be 64 over, because I want to have a gap of half a unit, which is 32, and then my x is halfway over again, so my x start is 64. Now my y start is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 units down, and then another 32. So 12 times 60, or yeah, 12 times 64 in order to and choose project settings. And then the first thing I want to look at down here is under display. I want to choose window. Also under general here. So general, display, window. So I'm going to set up the width to be 576 and my height to be 1024. But that's a bit big for testing purposes, so I'm going to change my test width to be half that, so 288, and my test height to be 512.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that. That's cool. 576, 1024. Wrong program. 576, 576, 1024. Test height. I don't see that. That must be Godot 3. Advanced settings. Yeah, I don't see that. Oh well. Doesn't matter.
So I just split this down the middle, half and half. I want it to be resizable. Scrolling down here a bit, I want to emulate a touchscreen. Scrolling down a little bit more. I want to change my stretch mode to be 2D.
Emulate touchscreen. I always do that. Where is he seeing this stuff? This is in window? Okay. Stretch mode. Oh, I have resizable checked. There we go. The animations below use a base size of just 16 by 9 pixels to demonstrate the effect of different stretch modes. I don't understand. I see. Okay, I think we want canvas items. Yeah, we want to keep the stretch aspect. Okay, I don't understand the difference between stretch mode viewport or canvas items. Directly at the target resolution. Okay, in this mode, the base size specified in width and height in the project settings is stretched to cover the whole screen. Taking the stretch aspect setting into account, this means that everything is rendered directly at the target resolution. 3D is unaffected, while in 2D, there is no longer a one-to-one correspondence between sprite pixels and screen pixels, which may result in scaling artifacts. Okay. Viewport scaling means that the size of the root viewport is set precisely to the base size specified in the project settings display section. To this viewport first, find the scale to fit the screen. Taking into account. ChatGPT always knows the answer. Just kidding. It's kind of stupid sometimes. Okay. The two modes you mentioned, stretch mode 2D and stretch mode viewport, referred to. And stretch mode 2D has now been changed to canvas items. Display and scaling graphics in a game or application. Stretch mode 2D. In this mode, the base size specified in width. I should specifically say in Godot. Here are the two stretch modes, 2D and viewport, to determine how the game's graphics are displayed. 2D. In this mode, the base size specified in the project settings, width and height, is stretched to cover the entire screen while maintaining the aspect ratio, taking the stretch aspect setting into account. Oh, this is just which way it renders at first. I don't think it matters. I don't care.
And I want to change my aspect to be keep width. I think width is the most important part. Okay, and now the other thing we want to look at is... Okay, so in rendering, go to quality and choose use pixel snap. That's going to make sure that nothing appears on a half pixel, which is especially important if you're using pixel-based graphics. We're not, but that's important to have turned on. And then, cool, we're good. Oh, one more thing we want to do is still in project settings, we need to go over to input map, and we're going to create a new action. So this action, I'm going to call UI_touch. And this is going to be for if a person clicks or touches on the screen, what I want to happen. So I'm going to add that action, and that gets added down here to the bottom. And now I need to tell Godot exactly what that action is. So I'm going to hit the plus symbol next to it. I want this to be mouse button, and I want it to be left button. So I'm just going to click add. So UI touch is my left button. All right, cool. So I'm going to close that. And if you just kind of move your screen around, you'll see it resizes to have this 9 by 16 look to it. So one more thing I want to do say, and that is I want to add the background and a mockup for both the top and bottom UI. So over here in my scene tree, I'm going to create a new node. So I'm going to click plus, and I'm just going to make a blank node 2D, which is just a regular parent of any other node. It's just what I'm going to have to be the root of this scene, and every scene needs to have a root. So node 2D, I'm going to rename this to, let's call it game window. Cool. And now to this game window, I'm going to add a child node, and this is going to be a texture rect, and this is going to be for the background. So I'm going to rename this texture rect background. All right, cool. Now I need to add some art so that this texture rect has something to actually go with it. So over here in my file system, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this folder art. I'm going to open that up. Now I've included a link to the assets that you can use, so I'm just going to go to those really quickly here. So under match 3 assets, I'm going to choose UI, and there's 2 different backgrounds that you can use. I'm just going to pull in background2.png, and while I'm doing this,
The background seems okay. I don't really like these assets though. Yes, it's oops. Looks nice. I like it. Cool.
I'm also going to pull in top UI, and I'm going to pull in bottom UI, so that I have these 3 things. So I can just kind of set up my scene a little bit here. So, all right, with my texture rect, which I renamed the background, it needs to have a texture, which is an image that it's going to display. So I'll drag my background onto that, and it looks like it automatically resized it to be the right size, so that's good. Okay, sorry about that weird cut there. So now that I have my background, I'm going to make sure that my game window is selected. I'm going to add a new child to it. This is going to be another texture rect, and I'm going to name this, we'll call this top UI. And then I'm going to pull my top UI PNG onto the texture. Okay, sorry about that weird cut again. So now I'm going to make another text rect for my bottom UI, and I'm going to rename this to bottom UI underscore 9 save scene, our basic pieces. And then after that, we're going to fill the board and continue our logic from there. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments down below. You can follow me on Twitter or ask me questions there.
X-Spray หอมเท่เกินต้านปกป้องนานถึงใจ48 ชั่วโมง
My ads are in Thai because I'm in Thailand. Okay.
Okay, welcome back. So today we're going to take a look at making the piece scene, and we're also going to be discussing a little bit about inheritance. So the way that inheritance works in Godot is actually pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new scene, and you can do that one of a few different ways. You can click the plus button, you can go to scene and choose new scene, or we're just going to make a new scene. Now, over here in my scene tree, this needs to have a root node, and so for me, I'm just going to use that as a node 2D, and then as a child.
My foot is numb. Sorry. Can you find tofu? Sure. You may think I ask you to find her a lot, but I ask you to find her like a fifth of the time that I would. Right under the bed. Is she breathing?
Child of my node 2D, I'm going to add a sprite. Now there's more that's going to go into these pieces, but for now I'm just going to have my main piece have a node 2D and a sprite. Now the art that I made for this is 128 by 128, but I have my whole grid set up as if it's 64 by 64. So before I go any further, I'm going to go to my transform on my sprite. I'm going to change my scale to be 0.5 by 0.5.
Wait, what's he doing? Node 2D sprite? Is this just for the...
So that's going to take any sprite and just make it 1/4 the size. So if I'm going from 128 by 128, but I really want it to be 64 by 64, I need to make it 1/4 the size. Now I'm going to save this scene with just that, and I'm going to change one to go in, and it's actually pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new scene, and you can do that one of a few different ways. You can click the plus button, you can go to scene and choose new scene, but we're just going to make a new scene. Now over here in my scene tree, this needs to have a root node, and so for me, I'm just going to use that as a node 2D, and then as a child of my node 2D, I'm going to add a sprite. Now there's more that's going to go into these pieces, but for now I'm just going to have my main piece have a node 2D and a sprite. Now the art that I made for this is 128 by 128, but I have my whole grid set up as if it's 64 by 64. So before I go any further, I'm going to go to my transform on my sprite. I'm going to change my scale to be 0.5 by 0.5. So that's going to take any sprite and just make it 1/4 the size. So if I'm going from 128 by 128, but I really want it to be 64 by 64, I need to make it 1/4 the size. Now I'm going to save this scene with just that, and I'm going to call it not node 2D, but piece. And then I should probably rename my node here too. Okay, cool. Now, I'm going to be using this as a template from which all other pieces are going to inherit. So because every piece has to have a position, a node, and then also a sprite that goes with it. So when I create a new scene for my pieces, I'm going to go to scene. I'm going to choose a new inherited scene so that I can inherit. And I'm going to inherit from the piece scene. Now this new scene that I make already has the node and the sprite. So let's add some art to our game here. So if we go to that folder that I have with all the assets in it, and we have the pieces, I'm just going to drag that whole pieces folder in here. Oh, I can't do that. I guess I gotta make my own pieces folder. I'm gonna call this pieces, and then inside the pieces folder, I'm going to add everything from the pieces folder on that asset pack. So let's open this up, grab all of these, and drag them in there. There we go. So today I'm just really interested in the regular pieces, the ones that don't have any stripes on them. And I have a whole bunch of different colors on here because I wasn't completely sure which colors I wanted to use, but I used them anyway. Okay, cool. So my first piece I'm going to make is going to be a blue piece. So blue underscore piece, piece. And I'm going to go to my sprite and just pull in the regular blue piece onto the texture. So there we go. There's our first piece. Now I'm going to save this scene. And now it's not saving as piece, it's saving as what I renamed it to. So I'm going to save this as blue piece. Now I'm going to create 5 more scenes that are going to inherit from piece. So I'm going to kind of fast forward as
I don't think I'm going to do it this way. I think I'm going to make one single scene for my singular block, or he calls them pieces. I'm going to have an animated sprite with different frames for the different pieces with a frame rate of 0 so it doesn't change. Well, it might have a little animation, but different animations for the different pieces actually. And then I will just set whatever piece it should be, whatever animation it should be when I instantiate or instance this scene right here.
I do that. We're going to go to new inherited scene. We want to inherit from piece, open. We want to rename it to whatever it is. This one is going to be green piece now. So green underscore piece. I'm going to go to the sprite and then change the sprite to be, or the texture to be that green piece sprite. And then save this. I'm going to do that 4 more times for my other colors. So I'll fast forward through that. You can try that on your own, and I'll meet you back here.
I don't know, honestly.
All right, okay, welcome back. So I've made my blue piece, my green piece, my light green piece, orange, pink, and yellow. So those are the different pieces I'm going to be using for my match 3 game. Now, today we talked about just creating these other nodes and about the idea of inheritance. Now, the reason that inheritance is so important now is I'm going to be using the same basic script on all 6 of these pieces. So what I could do is I could write that same script every time, or I could add that script to my main piece. And then since all of these inherit from that, any change I make to piece is going to automatically be given to all of these. So if I add another child node, if I add a script, if I change the visibility or material, if I do anything to this, it's going to automatically be applied to all of the children. And that's why inheritance is kind of so important in object-oriented programming, is it allows you to create some shortcuts for the most part. So yeah, those are our scenes. We still have our main game scene. Next time we're going to talk about how to add our child scenes to the main game scene so that it actually looks like a match 3 game. So feel free to leave any comments down below. If you learned anything today, feel free to give me a like. You can follow me on Twitter to find out when I post new videos. You can join my Discord, where I'm chatting pretty much every day. And yeah, have yourselves a wonderful day. Hey there, welcome back. So today we're going to set up the scripts in Godot, as well as talk about how to create a two-dimensional array in Godot. It's the old way for people who have been programming for a while, and if you haven't been programming for a while, it's going to seem a little weird. It's one of the weird things about Godot, but we'll get to that. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to take a look at our piece scene here. So the parent of all of the other pieces, not any one of the pieces, but the main piece scene from which everything else derives. So in our piece scene here,